what's going on? In the last video, we started with an introduction to Splunk 101. In this video, we're going to go over the second room, which is part of the Blue Premier series. Now, this room, Splunk, is not actually part of the cyber defense pathway, but rather it is part of the Blue Premier series on how to use Splunk to search through massive amounts of information. So this room is tremendously valuable if you want to move ahead in using Splunk to investigate incidents and detect threats. So this room is kind of, it's recommended to start with Splunk 101 before you go on and starting with Splunk. So basically, in this room, I'm going to go over task 5. Task 5 is all about investigating an advanced persistent threat. So we're going to go over the questions, and while I answer the questions, I will try and endeavor to explain every single step that I conduct throughout the investigation. So basically, also take a look and answer the questions about the search functionality in Splunk before going and answering, or before tackling task 5. Now, why I skipped this part? Because it's very basic. All you have to do is just download the manual. And with the manual here, as you can see, you will be able to answer the questions related to the search part of Splunk. So now, starting with advanced persistent threats, we are, as you can see, work our way through the first scenario in order to track down P01 whatsoever. Don't hesitate to use the material provided to give you a nudge. So basically, you're given a scenario where you will be required to investigate the events and the logs to find out how the incident happened and to construct a picture or paint an image about the chains that led to the incidents and how the attacker were able to compromise the targets and conduct further attacks. So let's go here and launch the instance of Splunk by going to the IP address, and the port is 8000. So here we are logged into Splunk Enterprise, and as you can see, we will head directly to investigate with the Splunk workshop. Familiarize yourself with the given details about the attack. So basically, one of the enterprise machines was attacked, and then the web server was attacked and defaced. So basically, the attackers were able to launch bots attacks starting from the web server. So as you can see, if you read through the scenario, this hands-on exercise for this workshop is based on the bots data set that was developed in 2016 and used for the first iteration of bots of the SOC. So you assume the person of Alice Bluebird, who is an analyst, has been hired to protect and defend Wayne Enterprises. So in this scenario here, or we have two scenarios. Well, let's take a look first at the lab information, data summary, supporting apps. So given we have the data, right, sorted by the source type. So basically, the Splunk team have uploaded the data here based on different sources such as firewall logs, web server logs, sysmonitor logs. They uploaded all of these different data, all right, to Splunk for you in order to analyze the events and the logs and to extract artifacts detailing how the attack has happened. So now you are the shoes of an analyst and you will be investigating the attacks. So basically, we click on next. Okay, so don't worry about this. I'm going to explain them as I go. So basically, we have two scenarios. We have APT scenario and we have ransomware scenario. Now, according to the room here, as you can see, we have task 5, advanced persistent threat, and we have ransomware. I'm going to leave ransomware for the next video because it is long. Actually, both scenarios are long, so I prefer to divide the walkthrough into two videos. In the first video, or in this video, we're going to walk through investigating an advanced persistent threat scenario with Splunk, of course. So make sure to click on APT scenario. And here we will be given the walkthrough. So basically, the investigation is done from the perspective of the cyber kill chain. So our aim is to understand how the attack has happened and how the attacker conducted their attack according to the cyber kill chain. So basically, we want to understand how the attacker has conducted the reconnaissance, how they collected information about the target, which is us, how they weaponized their payloads, how they delivered the payload, email, USB, whatsoever. So we want to find out everything happened divided by stage. So first we will put ourselves in the shoes of an attacker, and we want to find out what are the information, what are the collected information that they have amassed or gathered during the reconnaissance phase. So that's why you see here the first question is find out the IP scanning our web server. So basically, if you get back to the reconnaissance, every attack starts with the reconnaissance phase, where the attacker collects information about the target. So basically here, the question is, what is the IP scanning the web server? So the attacker, they are scanning the web server, they are conducting reconnaissance, so we're required to find out what was the IP address that was used, or what was used actually to conduct the web server scanning. So you click on next, finding the IP scanning of the web server. Now, while we answer the questions, we will open another instance or another tab, like this one. And in here, I'm going to explain, you don't need to read through all of that. I'm going to explain every command I type to extract the answers. So the first command is index, and we have I'm really not Batman. So basically, index equal bot SV1 means that I want to search through the index bot SV1, which contains the data set that I have uploaded. So basically, if you go to settings, data inputs, in here you will find all of the indexes. No, not here. Go to indexes. In the indexes section, you will find all of the indexes. Every index contains the data that have been uploaded. So in our case, bot SV1 contains the dataset that Splunk team has uploaded for us. And this is the directory of the database. So basically, when I say index, it means search through all of the logs contained in the bot SV1 dataset. I'm really not Batman is kind of keyword. So I want Splunk to search through the events and the logs for this keyword and extract me all of the events that contained this keyword. So why this keyword? Because the web server or the victim web server or the web server we are investigating has the full qualified domain name, which equals to I'm really not Batman. That's why we are searching through. Why we're searching through or why we're searching with this keyword? Because the question is asking what is IP scanning the web server. So we want to put the web server here in the search. We want to find out the transactions involved or the transactions that have involved the web server or the web server involved in. So now, after we enter the search query, how do we look through all of this? We will, if you remember in the last video, we said that in the left pane, there are the selected fields that define the source type, the source, and other interesting fields that we can use to narrow down our search. So basically, we want to find out the IP scanning the web server. So we want to take a look at the selected fields on the left. Let's see here if we can find something about destination IP or source IP. So basically, let's go down. See if we have got something, source IP. So if you click on source IP, you see we have source IP. As you can see, we have 3 IP addresses. Let's add this to the search by clicking on, so basically we add this, and here we got the values. So as you can see from the table here, the IP 40814842 has 38,416 hits on the web server. And next we have this IP, and third we have this IP. Now, this IP is the internal IP address, so we will exclude this from our search. Next we have this IP as a suspicious IP address, or most likely the IP scanning the web server and this IP. But actually, the number is not the only factor that um, considered in the equation of determining the IP scanning the web server. We cannot only rely on the number of counts to find out that was really the IP address. But let's first investigate. So we click on that IP address to add to the search. So the query became like this one. The source IP is added. Now the query is we'll look through the bot SV data set, and where the source IP address or the IP address that is initiating the traffic is 4081.48.42, which we suspect the IP address that has scanned the server. Now let's look also in the source type. So source type, we have stream HTTP and we have Suricata. Now source types are actually the sources that contain the logs, right, that you have uploaded to your Splunk. So you have HTTP logs, we have Suricata logs. Suricata is an intrusion detection system that works on the concept of signatures to detect threats. So basically, in order to narrow down our search, we have to select one source type. So from the question, the scan is being conducted on the web server. So most likely the IP address is conducting scanning on our web server using HTTP protocol. So if we click on stream HTTP, now, as you can see, we will narrow down our search to count only traffic that originates from this IP and using the protocol HTTP. But this is also not enough. Do you know why? Because we don't know yet what kind of traffic is initiated by source IP, this IP address. We know it is HTTP, but we don't know exactly what it is, right? So it's better if we cancel the source type and use the IDS signature logs. So let's click on search one more time. And here we hit on source type, select Suricata. So now we have the IDS logs. So why we select the IDS logs or IDS events? Because in IDS we have the option to view the signature that has been triggered while the alert has been generated. So if you look at the interesting fields, we got the option to select signature. Let me see here. Signature. Oh, if you don't find your field, just click on 90 more fields and scroll down until you find the signature. Tick the box and it will be added. Next is selecting the field that has been added recently. Where the signature. Okay, so here it is. Signature. Now, if you look at the signature, guys, here, you see we have the signatures that are generated by the IDS. So these signatures have been generated while the traffic was originating from this IP address. So it means that this IP address has triggered these signatures. Let's look at the signatures to understand what has happened. The first one is web server script tag in URL, possibly cross-site scripting attempt. And then we have SQL injection attempt. So you can see various and miscellaneous kinds of OWASP attacks, which means that there is some kind of web scanner trying to find an exploit in the web server, which means that now we can arrive at the safe conclusion that this IP address was the actual IP address initiating the scanning. That's how the answer came here. Now, what web scanner scanned the server? Now I have to find out the tool, right? So leave everything as is here and look for something called the HTTP headers. Normally, the signature of the web scanning tool is placed in the HTTP headers. So if you look at the HTTP headers field here, if you can find something, host name, content type, methods, length, status, referrer. Okay, this information might not be found in the logs of Suricata. We might want to switch to, let's reset the query here. We might want to change the source type in order to be able to find the headers. So let's look at the stream HTTP. By the way, stream is the Splunk tool that can filter through different kind of protocols. Among them is the HTTP. Let's find something that has to do with headers. So comment, length type, method, user agent, referrer, and nope. Let's go up again, click on method, not the method actually. All right, so let me reset this back to Suricata. Maybe we can take one example. So here, back to Suricata, and we scroll down, examine again the HTTP fields, content type, method, referrer, user agent length, protocol, redirect status, URL, user agent. So if you click back on the signature and take one example of these attacks, okay. So here, let's see what we can find from the content type, method, referrer, agent length, status, URL. User agent. Nope. Let me check the comments that I have got here. So here I sorted all of the comments that I used in the scenario. So we use this one, we use this one. Count source IP, nope. I don't think so. We have something here. Host name. Seems like we're looking in the wrong place. Let me check on source if there is something about. Okay, let's get back to. Let's reset the query back to. So cancel all of this. Select the source to be stream HTTP back. Search through the web server logs, and let's look. Let's forget about the HTTP headers. Let's find something about headers in another place. Server. Oh, so you have source headers here. If you click on that, so in the source headers, as you can see, we have the full HTTP request, right? Now, as you can see here from the sort of fields, we have something about Acunetics, right? If you don't know what's Acunetics, you can Google it, but Acunetics is a web vulnerability scanner. So that's how we find the answer for question number 2. What is the IP address of our web server? So now we have got to find the source address, right? So basically, given all of the information that we have gathered so far, we know that this IP address is the one that has conducted the attacks against the web server. So if we just change the source IP to destination IP address, we might get the results, right? But if you see here, keep this address and select your destination IP address from the left fields. Let's see if there's something about destination. Okay, so destination we have got 2. First one has got 99% of the hits. The last one got 0.005. So previously we know that the source IP address, which is attacker's IP address, has conducted around 20 hits, right? So it is impossible that these 20 hits were against this IP address. So we can conclude that the source IP address that was under the attack was this IP address, which corresponds to the IP address of the web server. That's how we answer the question number 3. What content management system is I'm really not Batman using? So let's find out the content management system. Now we can keep this query as is, right? And see if we get back to the logs, to the source headers again. So see here, as you can see, the source headers indicate that the requests coming from the attacker were against Joomla index.php, Joomla index. Most of the hits were against something that starts with Joomla, and Joomla is a content management system. But that's not the only way to answer the question. There is another way, which is by sorting through the HTTP requests type. So basically, if we can filter through the methods, as you can see, we have post, get, options. And if we select, knowing that most of the traffic were post requests, let's select post and see the post requests. So going through the first event, for example, we don't need to use the fields. As you can see, HTTP, I'm not really Batman / Joomla, which is the content management system used in this scenario. What address is performing the brute forcing? What address is performing the brute forcing attack against our website? So now, let's get back. Here you have the explanations, but let's next, click next. Here we answered this part, determining which web server is a target. Identifying where a brute force attack originated. So basically now we will see what kind of brute force attack or where a brute force attack originated from. So how it has happened, right? So if we get back now to the question, what address is performing the brute forcing attack against our website? Now, let's get back to the query here. So now we have to cancel this one. Let's get back to the first original query. Now, we want to find out the attack that's performing brute force, the IP that's performing brute force attack. And we know that brute force attack are conducted using HTTP post requests, right? Okay, let's add this to the equation here. So here, let's put HTTP method equal to post, and then you have to put the source as the IP initiating the attack, or we can put the destination address as the web server address. So let's put destination IP is the web server. So now we can see with this query, we can see all of the traffic coming against this IP address where the method is HTTP post. Okay, so is that enough? Not yet. So now we have to find out kind of brute force attack, right? So what is the pattern for finding a brute force attack? So basically here, scroll through. So as you can see, we have to use some kind of form data. Why? Because any brute force attack, to be successful, you have to insert arbitrary values in a form, right? If you can, how did this come here, right? So you have to find out how. So on the left, once you filter through this, on the left, you have to look for form fields. So you have flow ID, you have, all right. So in the current source type, you don't have any option to choose form data. Let's click on the IDS logs. We might find something. Let's see if we can find something about forms. So here we have file name, file info name, file size. So here we are investigating the Suricata logs. But if we change to, as in the query here, if we change to HTTP, let's see now. Zero. Okay. Let's look at the fields. So form data, as you can see, now we have form data. If you click on form data here, yeah, so here you see the pattern for these attacks, so source index, but we have to filter first by the method of the request. So basically here they used post, so you can use post here, the same method equal post to filter more. Now we can back to form data, and now you see pattern of username and password brute force. So as you can see, categories, ordering equal alpha, and search phrase equal exact, and not yet. Let's scroll through. Let's see this one, mail to. So these appear to be search values, right? Events with this field. So I've got all of the events where the form data was used. But this is not enough because all the websites contain search form, contact form, and also login form. We want only data that is related to username and password or login. So here we can control this. So if you type here or use wildcards to output all events that contain username and password, and use the pipe to say table form data. So this command, as you can see, will search through all the events where the destination IP address is the web server and the request method is post and contains username and password, and we will pipe all of that to a table that shows the form data. We have got nothing. If you don't know how to type the query, you can just click on here, run search in a new tab, and the command will be run, but I don't know. Let me check why in my case it didn't work. So source type, let me check on again. Oh, it was this one. So you have to remove this one because this one corresponds to the fully qualified domain name of your IP. So remove this one and I think it will work. Still no luck. Okay, let's make some ordering. So this one comes first. Events, search. Ironically, I cannot get the same results. The same command, but here I cannot get any results. Okay, never mind. So here, as you can see, we got all of the logs, events, where the form data was mentioned. So we have username, admin, password equal, this is a sensitive word for YouTube, I'm not going to say it. So you can see all of the attempts of the brute force attack. Now go back to the question. What address is performing the brute force against our website? So now we have extracted all of the brute force attempts. Let's find out what was the address, right? What was the address that was initiating these requests or attacks? So let's back to events. Okay, and here we go back, go scroll down, click on source IP. So we have two hits, or we have two IP addresses. The first one is, or starts with 23. The last one starts with 40. And we remember that the 40 something IP address was initiating the web server vulnerability scanning. But ironically, the IP address here has 99% of the hits using the filter we have got. So this means that this IP address was the IP address responsible for the brute force attacks. What was the first password attempted in the attack? Now here we get our hands dirty with regular expression. So back to here, skip, you can skip all of that. All right, so here we use regular expression to find out the question. What was the question? The first password attempted in the attack, the first one. So basically you have to use some kind of ordering, sorting the results, right? At the same time, we have to extract the strings or the password string. So if you are back to the, let me go back again to the search, or no, here. So let's type table form data. So as you can see, the password starts with password field equal the password, and there is ampersand character. So we have to form some kind of regular expression to extract the string that comes after pass WD equal and before the ampersand. So this is a job of regular expression. So you don't have to do anything else other than just executing this command, right? I'm piping the output to a regular expression by typing rex. Okay. So rex, the field here is password. It should show up automatically, but it is not. Pass. So here they use the, let's scroll down. Okay, so here we have to define the field. So what is the field? What is the field to which we will apply the regular expression? In our case, it is form data. Why? Because it contains the password. Form data equal, in our case, it will be the, the field equal form data. So the field equal form data. And we start with password, or it is here actually. So here we pipe the output of this command to a regular expression that will extract the password from the form data field. So we have to define first the field to which the regular expression is applied, and then we have to define the field. Our field is password. So we extract everything that comes after password, and we form some kind of regular expression that puts the extracted password in a variable called user password. So now this command will extract the passwords here and put them in a variable called user password. If we type here table user password, it will display all of the extracted passwords. Execute. As you can see now, here are all of the extracted passwords. The question is, what was the first one? The first one is the oldest one, right? So pipe this to reverse. As you can see, it shows the oldest password. By default, if you don't type reverse, it will show the newest record. But here it will show the oldest one, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Your answer. Now, one of the passwords is in the brute force attack is James Brodsky's favorite Coldplay song. Which 6-character song is it? So, in a nutshell, you have to download the data that contains information about, or contains the songs of James Brodsky, and compare them to the password list you have just extracted. So now we have extracted the password list, right, in this query. You have to save this query in a notepad so that we will compare this, or the result of this query, to the file that contains the songs of James Brodsky. So Splunk team has uploaded the data here about the James Brodsky's, and all you have to do is you just construct a query to compare the password list you have got from the previous query with the Coldplay song and extract the passwords that contains or that are 6-character long. Let's see how this plays out. So basically skip that one. Here we introduce the concept of also you have to also evaluate. No. So here we introduce the concept of lookups. So basically, what are lookups? Okay, forget about this one. I'm gonna open my, okay. So yeah, I have written all of the commands. Let me look through the command that will answer the question. So see here, table user 1, search. Okay, let me take this one. Back to here and okay. So back now to our example. The first command here, as I explained, it will extract the events where username and password are mentioned in the HTTP requests. We pipe this to a regular expression as we explained later a while ago to extract the passwords and put them in a variable called user password. Then we use the function evaluate. And evaluate here, we will use, actually it's not a function, it's a feature. So use evaluate here and the function len p-word to calculate the user password field. So let's break this down. If we cut this and run this command, so here as length okay, we can't use that with the eval command, right? So click on stats. Oh, nothing on stats. All right. So let's continue the command. I think it's not going to work like this. So basically, after we find or calculate the length of the password, we pipe the output to search. Search will find or will look through the records and find where or what character or what password is 6-character long. Because we piped or we assigned the value of the length, right, function to len p-word, right? Now len p-word contains the length of every password. When we use search len p-word, we are telling Splunk, right, to look only for or display only the passwords that are 6-character long. Table user password len p-word will display the results in a table where you have the password and it is length. So running this, should display, as you can see, the passwords which are 6-character long. Well, this doesn't answer the question, but it will put us in one step further. Let me get back to the comments here. So we have input lookup, CP, CSV, all right. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna skip this part. Okay, let's take this one. I'm gonna take it and explain it to you. So here we start, as you can see, as we started previously with the command to extract the passwords, put the password in one variable, calculate the length of the password, display only the passwords which are 6 characters long, and here we have used the evaluate command to just convert the passwords into lowercase. So use lower on the user password variable that contains the passwords. And we put the lowercase passwords in a new variable called password. We use then the concept of lookup. So lookup, it will just look in the CSV file that we have talked about earlier. It contains the songs of the James Brodsky, and it will specifically look in the song column and compare it against password. If there's something equal, it will output them in the variable called song. And then we have here the next command. It will search through the yielded records and display ones that start with song, and we put everything in a new table with the column song. If we execute this one, we get only one, which is the answer. So this was the password that was 6 characters long and equals to one of the records in the Coldplay CSV file, which contains the James Brodsky songs. That's how we answer this question. Now, what was the correct password for the admin or for admin access? What was the correct password for admin access to the content management system running I'm Really Not Batman? So here you have to find out the password. Now, understanding the nature of the brute force tools such as Hydra, these tools, they will log in or they will use the password twice after the first successful attempt. So we have to find out where in the events one password was used twice. Now let me, well, this one is a bit messed up right now. Let me get back to where? Let's see here. So let's take this one. So again, what we're doing here, we are investigating the dataset, filtering through the HTTP requests, where also we are looking at the form data. Why? Because we are still investigating the passwords. We have to find out what was the successful one. So we still have to look through the form data, right? And the station IP is the web server IP. Why? Because it is an IP address that was under attack. Now, let's, and we pipe this to a regular expression to extract the passwords. After I've extracted the passwords that were used in the attack, we use the stats function with the stats command. By using the stats command, we can use statistical functions like count, sort, whatsoever. So in this case, we use count, and here values source by user password. So this means that we are counting the number of times, right, a password is used by a source. The source is the source address or the source IP address. And then we sort descending. Click on search. So as you can see, the user password or the passwords column here, and we have the count and we have the values. So the count is, as you can see, displaying how many times a password was used by using the count value source by user password. So we sort them by user by the passwords. So here we have sorted the results that we have got from the previous queries, right, by the password, and we displayed how many times a password has been used using the source. Okay, and we sort dash count, sorted them by descending order. So as you can see here, the password Batman was used twice. One time by this IP and one time by this IP. Now given that we know that this IP address was performing the brute force attack, we know that now this password was actually the correct password, right? That yielded successful login attempt, or successful login actually, not attempt. Now, what was the average password length used in the password brute forcing attempt rounded to closest whole integer? So now here we have to go through again all of the passwords that have been used, finding the average password, finding the length and then the average length, and use some kind of mathematical equation or mathematical function to find the, or to round the result to closest whole integer. So let me now take, let's see here. Okay, this one. So basically, back now to the command. Now again, we search through the stream HTTP and we look for post request. Why? Because it's a brute force attack is actually conducted with post request. Now we pipe the output to regular expression to extract the passwords. Now we also put or search through all the passwords, display them in one column, and then we use the evaluate command to calculate the length of each password, pipe the output to stats command to use the average function. So average is a function that can be used in Splunk, but you have to define first the stats command first. So until now, we found the length of every password, but we have to find also the average length. So we use the variable here in the average function, and as average length HTTP is the column name that we would like to have after we find the average of every password, average length of every password. Then we also output this to another function that rounds the results. So click on search here. As you can see, we find that the average length is 6. Now, what if I remove this one? Yeah, so let's remove this one. So here, just this one, and we click on search. As you can see now, without rounding the answer, we got 617, right? Now, if we only want to display the length of every password, what we would do here, we would say table my length. As you can see, we have the length of passwords. We can also display the user password, by the way, to display the length of every password. So every password with its length, as you can see here. But this is not what we want to answer the question. This is for practice only. So the answer is 6. Next, how many seconds elapsed between the time the brute force password scan identified the correct password and the compromised login rounded to 2 decimal places? Here the question is, what is the difference, or what is the time difference between the successful, where is it? The first one is identifying, it's kind of difficult. So here, the time elapsed between the finding the correct password and the compromised login. I have to find the time difference. So let me grab the command. Building the commands from scratch will be time consuming. That's why I put the commands here and then I explain them one by one. Let's take this one. Let's break it down. So here, again, we look through HTTP requests, we extract the passwords, regular expression, and we also here pipe the output to search password equal Batman. Why? Because here we're interested in finding the time duration for the correct password. Beforehand, we knew that the correct password is Batman, so we put that in the search query. Pipe the output to transaction command. So the transaction command is the type of command that can be used to, how can I say it? To find the difference between the first event and the last event. So transaction user password it means that transaction command will be applied at the user password, right? To find the first event and the last event of this field, and as you can see, find the difference between them. And then we output the results to table, and we list the duration. The duration is the result of the transaction command, right, on the user password. So we perform some kind of we actually subtraction. It's actually subtraction between the first event and the last event that involved the user password, and we output them in the duration. So we see the duration is 92.16084, but that's not the answer because we're required to find that with rounded to 2 decimal places. So technically what we have to do here, we have to use the round function. So we pipe this to duration rounded equal round to for duration 2 decimal places instead of 0 type 2. So it is 92 1.6. Still we got some numbers. So here, let's remove this one. Table duration rounded. Let's see if this works. Yeah, and it is 92.17. Next, how many unique passwords were attempted in the brute force attempt? So technically here we are dealing with some kind of statistical skills, right, in Splunk. So here we have to find out the number of unique passwords. So we use a function. I'm going to explain it now. So here again, the same command, extract the password, but this time we use the stats function or stats command because we are involved now in a statistical question or statistical inquiry. DC means distinct count. Distinct count. If you know SQL, you know what distinct is. And if you know SQL also, you know what count is. So distinct count means count only the unique records that are not repeated of the user password. This will answer your question, which is for 12. What is the name of the executable uploaded by P01, S0, and 1 whatsoever, SOI? Okay, so here the stage is exploitation or action objective. No, it's a kind of exploitation, right? So find out the executable name that was uploaded by the attackers. So let me see here. Okay, let's take this one. This won't answer the question, but it will give you a staging idea of what will happen. So basically here, the source is the same. We're looking at the IDS logs because these kind of questions or these kind of artifacts are captured by the logs, the executable files used in the attack. Destination is I am really not a Batman because this is the victim, or destination equal. So here it's kind of abundance condition. So we're telling here the Splunk that find all the records, right, that contain or all the records in the Suricata logs, where destination could be I'm really not Batman or could be an IP address. So we don't want to miss any log in Suricata because one of them is not mentioned. We want to involve both records, the IP and the domain name. The request is posed because the question is asking who uploaded or what was the file that has been uploaded. Upload is post request, and then we put the keyword .exe to find all of the occurrences where exe was used. So search. Let's see here. URL. So we have here in the URL we have exe file called html.exe, but probably it is not the answer. We can also look in file name. As you can see, we have two hits, shtml and 3791. So yeah, this is the answer, but that's not the way to arrive at the decisive conclusion, because you have to corroborate the conclusion or the answer from different kind of source types. So if we are back here, let me grab this one. Yeah. So now, if you want to investigate more into this file, we put this file into as a keyword, and here we put the source type as Windows System Monitor. If you watched my video about Windows System Monitor, you know that one of the events that it triggers is the event code 1, which is related to process creation. So we want to look through the events and find out what is the process that has been created where the exe was 3791.exe. If we found some hits, it means that the previous results we have found by looking in the HTTP logs was correct. But first, you have to, as you know, corroborate findings together. So we click on search. So we got 5 hits. Now, if you look at, let's see, process access, we have this one. And also we can look at the command line, the command that initiated the tool. As you can see, we have this is executable. And also we see, let's see here. You can also see the hashes of the files, but that's actually not for this question. It's for the next question. Now we have some events surrounding this file, right? Now, if we get back here and take which one? Let's take this one. So in here, we're also telling Splunk to look through the logs for this executable file and where the command line equals 3791. The command line is the command that was used to launch the process. So see how many hits we have got. I've got 1, which means actually this process actually was the process used or the answer for the question uploaded by the attacker. So we see the process mentioned in the system monitor log, Microsoft log for process creation, and we saw it in the HTTP logs, which means that the process was used or was uploaded by the attacker and then used or executed on the system. Next, what is the MD5 hash of the executable uploaded? Now, if you scroll down, click on MD5, you can find the answer. Next, what is the name of the file that defaced the I am really not Batman website? Now, as you can see through the chain of events, the attackers have compromised the web server by guessing the correct password. They uploaded an executable file for further attack, and then they defaced the website. The website is the web server website, right? So in order to find out what is the name of the file that defaced the website or that was displayed on the website, we have to find the logs where the destination IP address is the web server log. So let me see here what was the command I used. Let's take this one to make things gradual or to stage the concepts for you. So here, search. So here, we back to the first, to the earliest stages of this video. So let's break down this query here. So we are looking through the send data set and through the HTTP logs, and the source address is the web server address. Now, normally we wouldn't investigate the logs where the source is the web server address because normally web servers do not originate traffic. They receive traffic from clients and then they send back as a response. So basically, when you're looking through these events, if you scroll down and select destination, so we see 2 IP addresses, which means that our web server, that was the victim, was communicating with 2 IP addresses, which is really weird, right? Because web servers normally, as I said earlier, they receive traffic. They are the destination IP addresses. They are not the source. But in this case, they are the source of the queries. So if we take this one, we modify the query. So what we are doing here, we set the source type as fileable. From here, you can set the source type. If I back to the query, let me, oh my God, just put this here. Okay, so search, I just want to show you how I found the source type. Source type is firewall, as you can see. Select the source type as firewall, and here we look through the events to find answers. Why would the web server, right, or the web server, the victim web server would originate the traffic to the outside? So you have to look through the firewall logs by selecting the source type. Back to the command. So the source type is the firewall, and destination is, as you can see here, the source IP address, not destination IP address, which this is actually kind of statement to instruct Splunk to display the logs where where the IP address or the web server IP address is not the destination IP address by saying not destination. Category equal malicious websites. How we brought up the category by selecting the category from the interesting fields, which should be here, somewhere here. Category, yeah, category, malicious websites, information technology. Click on search. So we have the firewall has identified that the web server in this IP address or with this IP address has initiated traffic to websites categorized as malicious websites. How many events we have? We have 3 events. Now, back to the question here. What is the name of the file that defaced the website? Find out the name of the file. Let's see here. So in the results, if we scroll down and click on URL, so this URL contains the value requested by the web server, right? So it is a request to this domain name on this port, and this is the image. So technically, it is as if the web server is initiating traffic to this website to display the image that was supposed to have defaced the website. So the web server is continuously, right, initiating request to this IP address or to this address to display the image, which marks the answer for this question. What IP address has tied to domains that are pre-staged to attack wine enterprises? So here we have to find out, this is the answer for this question. Now, the next question is, this attack used dynamic DNS to resolve to the malicious IP. What fully qualified domain name is associated with this attack? So back to the same query, we see the fully qualified domain name. And if you use whos, you will find its IP address. Let's do that. So let me grab this here. Okay, so we are in validating. No, we are ahead of the step. Let's next. We also found a fully qualified domain name. Next. So from this step on, all of the other steps are kind of easy, okay? So in the scenario they used Writeups to find out the fully qualified domain name or the IP address of this domain. So here, as you can see, you only put the domain name, and you will find out open source information, open source intelligence details about this domain. So you see here we have, these are the IP addresses or IP numbers for this domain, and if you scroll down, go up. So the question was, what IP address has tied to domains that are pre-staged to attack wine enterprises? Okay, so we have quick information about this domain. We have the IP numbers. Let's click on that, one of them. So here we have, there is something about wine enterprises. So I have to find this. Oh, I have to open this file. I don't know why I closed this. Okay. Let's open this in a new tab. History, who is? Okay, nothing here. Let's take a look at these numbers, these IP addresses. See what are the possible domain names. See if there's anything about wine enterprises, but I don't see anything. Okay, next one. Let me check out here. So we have used the same tool, but weird enough, in my case, it's not showing the IP address. Quick info. As you can see, the IP numbers are different. In my case, records. Okay, who is? Click on that. Yep, the IP numbers are different, but this question, this part is not hard. All you have to do is just to walk through the steps here to find out the answers. So all of the answers starting from this question, the IP address, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 5, 6. All of these answers can be found if you just follow the steps here. All you have to do is to just use open source intelligence to find out the correlation between the IP addresses and the domain name, the email addresses, basic whois search, okay? And you will also use virus total. By the way, how do we find the hex code here? If you scroll to the last step, you will not need Splunk to answer these questions, all right? These questions are within the scope of open source intelligence. Okay, then I will stop here. And in the next video, we will tackle down the ransomware scenario and answer its questions. I hope you enjoyed this video, although it was very long. And